The Orange got beat with their own signature defense in Durham, making the last 2 regular season games all that more important. We'll let you know how Syracuse stands within the quadrant system after that loss. Post-Duke fan feedback and Joe's preview for Boston College as the Cuse head to Chestnut Hill Wednesday, February 28th at 9. Let's go.
Make some noise, Orange fans. It's time for the Cuse Nation podcast with Sean and Joe. Give us a like on Facebook at facebook.com/Cuse Nation podcast.
All right, what's up, Cuse Nation? Thanks for tuning in to the Cuse Nation podcast with Sean and Joe. If you could please subscribe to whatever platform you listen on, that'll really help us out and we'll be in your library as soon as an episode is published. If you like it, please share it with your friends and family. 5-star review wouldn't hurt either. All right. Syracuse loses to Duke. Duke's 60 points marked a season low for the Blue Devils. Unfortunately, Syracuse couldn't capitalize on decent defensive play. Syracuse fell to 18-11 overall, 7-9 in the ACC in front of 9,314 fans in Durham, losing 60-44 to number 5 Duke. Our 3 bigs were all but shut down. Battle led the team with 12 points. He was 4 for 12 from the field, 2 for 8 from 3, 2 for 2 from the line. Howard followed with 11 points, 4 for 14 from the field, 2 for 8 from behind the arc, and 1 for 2 at the line. Brissett was less than impressive with 6 points. Defense was key. Syracuse did hold Duke to 11% from behind the arc, which is excellent. 43% from the floor Duke shot. Bagley in his return led Duke with 19 points. He was 8 of 9 from the floor. Duke held the Orange 24% behind the arc and 31% from the floor. Syracuse couldn't buy a whistle. They only shot 6 free throws. They made 4 of them. Finally, Syracuse turned the ball over season-tying 17 times and was out-rebounded 37-33. Syracuse is now 0-6 when out-rebounded. Joe, It was just about, I guess, what we thought. Let me hear your analysis and give me your grade for the game against Duke.
Well, my analysis is that we very well have seen the national champions this past Saturday. And that's kind of the way that I'm going to go. I know you probably don't want to hear it, and a lot of people don't like Duke, but they do have a lot of talent. And, I mean, just compared to us, talent and depth-wise, what they did Saturday wasn't really a surprise. It was a small win for the fact that we could hold them to 60 points and actually prove that our defense is worthy. But we do not have the offense to beat a team like that who's going to be able to play a defense like that. And I don't know if you want to – I'm sure there's people out there that are going to partly blame Boeheim for teaching it to them, you know?
Yeah, during the Olympics and such.
But this is something Duke has been basically a team all year, and I know you've talked to your brother, and I've talked to your brother, and he's a huge Duke fan, and he follows it very like I follow Syracuse, so he knows what they're good at, what they're bad at, and he's pretty unbiased about it. So he knew that their defense was not good in man-to-man, and they were young, and he was hoping that it was just going to gel and get better. But they were basically, it was a race to outscore teams, and they're a very high offensive team, offensively ranked team. As soon as Bagley got hurt after that North Carolina game, that team they went strictly to 2-3 zone with a little bit of press every once in a while, just like we do, and compared them to a majority of teams out there, and they have the talent and they have the depth. They got 2 top 10 draft picks, I believe, with Carter Jr. and Bagley, and they play a pretty mean-looking 2-3 zone. And I talked about it last time when I was their last podcast, talking about how I was a little nervous to see us playing against a team with equal or better talent, in this case better talent, play a decent 2-3 zone against us for a whole game. And we definitely do not have the offense to do that. And I hope it doesn't actually come back to bite us in future games, because we did struggle with Eastern Michigan and some other teams this year scoring against 2-3 zones. So overall, I think that's just is that Saturday we saw a Duke team that nobody's seen yet, because it was Bagley's first game back with him playing in the middle of that 2-3 zone, and that defense, as you can see, I mean, it's legit, man.
Yeah, it's good.
So it's hard for me to even talk about the game just because of the fact that it's just.
This is a more difficult game to talk about.
Well, this is a game that it's like we talked about before, an opportunity.
Right.
And obviously we didn't take advantage of that opportunity.
We blew it. Say it.
I mean, like our defense definitely played good, holding that team to 60 points, holding them to their percentage, especially from the 3-point line, was good. We didn't get to the free throw line like we'd like. We lost rebounds only by a small margin, but nonetheless we lost rebounds. Like you said, we had a bad turnover day, and I think we only went to the line 6 times to Duke's 16. So when you really look at it, with 11 minutes to go after a Matthew Moyer free throw, we were only down 7, I think, at that point. I mean, that's a game that you're in. You hit a couple shots, and you're right there. So up until the 11-minute mark, we were only down 7. Then they started plugging away, and they ended up getting it to 15. And that was all she wrote as far as that was concerned. But there were some good things to take out of it. The worst part about it is that it comes at the end of the season when we're looking to pick up a signature win or at least a win so that it doesn't go against, the L column to make the tournament. And and in this case, too, again,
as far
they
as
were
signature
worse.
wins go, we're hurting. There's not much there.
Yeah. Right. But this is like one of those games where you kind of wish you would have played them earlier in the season.
Yeah, I think they could have probably done better earlier in the season. I think it would have been a closer game. I don't know if they'd have still won. But of course.
No, but still, I mean, historically, Duke, they have a lot of turnover. They have a lot more turnover than we do. So to be able to play a team like Duke in the beginning of the season.
True. Yeah.
We could maybe be able to catch them before they hit full stride or full strength. And again, I mean, if we'd have played them earlier in the season, then we most likely would have been playing against a man-to-man defense.
Yeah,
so who knows?
And, Bagley was out for 4 straight games and comes back to play against us. So, there's that too. That's just unfortunate that's just bad luck. So.
Right. And, I mean, you can argue the way that Bolden and Carter played if it really would have even mattered.
But I mean, you don't
I'd
know.
Like to think
you don't
yes.
know. I would like to think yes. I would like to think yes, too, because the defense did shut down. Allen's been the star of this offense while Bagley's been out. And, he scored 6 points. He was 0 for 6 from behind the arc, and he only made 3 out of 9 from the field. So, they did a good job there. He had 6 assists, but
Trent Jr. is shooting like 40+% from the 3-point line in the ACC play, and I don't think he hit 1, I think, at the end of the game.
He was 1 for 6.
Yeah, it was like right at the end of the game when he was wide open.
Yep. So, what's your grade?
Grade, I'm going to go B.
What? Oh, my gosh.
What?
You are crazy.
How am I crazy? Okay. Again, like I said, I think I stay pretty consistent. You have an offense and you have a defense, so that's 50% and 50% if you want to break it up more for hustle.
You gave them a B+ last game, and they almost beat North Carolina.
What's up?
You gave them a B+ last game, and they almost beat North Carolina.
We were at home.
Yeah, well, true. Okay. All right.
And honestly, like I said, I think just by the eye test, Duke looked a whole hell of a lot better than North Carolina did. I don't know if it's just me, but
at certain points, Duke's offense struggled too in the beginning.
Well, of course, but I don't really think. I don't know, man. Their big men didn't really look like they struggled too much at all.
No, but the offense it started slow. It did. It started slow. So anyway, what'd you decide? B?
Yeah.
B. Holy cow. Okay.
What? Well, they're away at Cameron.
Okay, I get it. First, okay, I've had a love-hate relationship with Dick Vitale since I was like 8 years old. Okay, he gets an F. Okay, I cannot handle that guy during a Duke game. Maybe it's the Duke thing. I can't handle it. He's obnoxious. He has trouble focusing on the game itself. And I had to mute him. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to the pub. So I went to the pub. And I watched the second half there. So he gets an F. Did I see what? I heard about 5 minutes of that game. I had to stop. I couldn't do it.
But did I tell you that story about my coworker? He's a North Carolina fan. He was rooting for me, so he's going to watch the Duke-Syracuse game. He got about 5 minutes in, and he's like,
He couldn't handle him either, could he?
Oh, he said, "Hey man, I had to turn it. Couldn't handle the slurp fest."
I know. And then I read stuff about it too. I didn't last that long, so I didn't even hear much. But
well, the funny thing was that right after he texted me that, you texted me. I just muted Vic Dicky V. Had to mute him. So it was funny. It just happened simultaneously, and I was like laughing out loud.
If it was at home, it's harder to mute because, like you, Joe, I like hearing the crowd, and that always gets me pumped. But he gets an F. On to the game, though. Battle, Howard, and Brissett, they combined for 10 of 39 for 29 points overall. We can't win like that. We can't win like that. The Orange committed 17 turnovers. That I mentioned that was tied for the most this year. The other one was against Kansas. Duke turned those 17 turnovers into only 10 points, though, which is, I mean, you have that many turnovers, you expect more points out of it with an offensive team like Duke. So, once again, that's the defense showing up. Syracuse, on the other hand, they didn't convert a single point out of the 10 turnovers that Duke committed. So, though I think the defense did a pretty good job, we need more muscle down low. Once again, we know that's been the story of the year with those big guys down there. And if we're not getting killed by the three, we're getting killed in the paint. Duke scored 36 of its 60 points in the paint. And I mentioned Grayson Allen. He's been killing it. He didn't do much. The defense, but he didn't have to do much because their game plan was to get it to Bagley. So, I gave him a D+, man. Yeah.
How?
Well, because that was pathetic.
Okay.
It was pathetic offensively. I thought that we could have kept it way closer than that. It was very reminiscent of UVA. I gave him a F for UVA because that was at home. That was the only difference. It's very reminiscent of UVA.
Well, they forced them into a jump shooting team, and we need to be able to drive first.
Yeah,
before we open up. I mean, we have to be able to hit more shots, obviously, but like I said, I mean, to hold the team to their lowest point total at home at 60 points, I think, like I said, is a small feat in itself.
I
would have never been able to give them under a C+.
Okay, well, I did.
I know that.
Sorry.
It's all good.
I know. It's
great.
terrible. But I graded them right after the game. I figured all this out. So anyway, real quick, there was
emotion went into that. Okay.
A little bit. There was a moment in the press conference that was, joke, supposed to be a joke, and it had to be explained. And when you have to explain a joke, it's just not funny.
But I don't think that Coach K should really be allowed to play zone. I'm surprised that he would even do that. I think there should be something said about that. Questions?
Awkward.
That was a joke.
No, now you can.
Oh, now they laugh.
No questions? I can go.
I mean, come on. These people are so terrible. They are.
Yeah.
The guy, I know he's dry, but come on. They thought he was serious. Anyway, Joe, final thoughts.
Here he is complaining again.
Yeah, exactly. Well, whatever. Final thoughts on the Duke game, Joe.
To me, I've watched a lot of college basketball this year, and Duke playing that 2-3 zone is the best that I've seen. So like I said, can't really take too much out of it. We jumped up a bunch in our strength of schedule. We've got now BC looks more and more like a must-win. So.
Oh, absolutely, and we'll get into that in just a second. But just to wrap this up, both teams combined for 0 for 20 from three-point land in the first half. Duke missed its first 15 threes. They almost missed their streak that was extended when Trayvon Duval made one. The streak is at 1,013 games with a three-pointer. The Blue Devils held 4 straight opponents to 57 points. Syracuse obviously well below that. And also, Duke leads the series now. They have the edge at 6-5. All right, Joe. Before we start the quadrants, I want you to break down the quadrants, but first I got a question for you from Brandon. He says, do you think any of these teams mentioned in the latest FBI report will forfeit an NCAA tournament berth? And if they do, will that cement our way into the tournament?
I think that's the one that was on Facebook, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Yes. So I did put a little bit of an answer in there in which I didn't know if the the report was going to come out or not, but I don't know if it's going to take that. I think that once more information comes out, then I think schools will start to comply. So I guess it just really just depends on what the FBI finds and if they find truth be told. For example, it looks like Sean Miller's done coaching at Arizona, and they're probably going to look more into see if there was some money exchanging hands to Ayton, because if he took money, then every single game he played in is going to be a forfeit, and it's not going to count. So if it gets to a point here within the next couple of weeks to where FBI can make some type of if they can find out whether or not these things happen or not, and if they weren't just hearsay, then I think their NCAA and the schools are going to have no other choice but to. I mean, I don't know if the NCAA is going to put him in, because if you have an ineligible player, then every game you played in was ineligible, which would mean that team is not eligible to play in a tournament. So
yeah, they really have to wrap it up, though.
It's going to come all the way down to timing, but it's looking like now, unlike the NCAA, it doesn't look like there's going to be a report. This is more or less like the FBI is reporting it as they find it, and depends on how fast they can do it. Yeah. Otherwise, it just seems like there's just going to be a lot of teams that are going to make the tournament, which will end up their appearances won't even be counted in the future. So
right. All right. Quick, give us the quadrant breakdown, buddy.
Quadrant breakdown, I always start off with the RPI and strength of schedule. We didn't move in RPI. We stayed at 46, and this is current as far as today after last night's and yesterday's games. Our strength of schedule is when it has gone up to 15.
Wow. That's a big jump.
Yeah, about the same jump North Carolina, about seven, 8 spots.
22, I think.
Right. I don't know if you can really argue with that strength of schedule, and it's only going to get better. Right now, from compared to last week, quadrant 4 stayed the same. We're still 5-0. Quadrant 3 jumped up from 7-1 to 7-2. Wake Forest has actually currently dropped here last week. Yep. So now the away game at Georgia Tech and the away game at Wake Forest are 2 quadrant 3 losses, but 7-2 there. Which means that one of our losses from quadrant 2 dropped, and our quadrant 2 this week is looking at 4-2. And then obviously the Duke was a quadrant 1 game, so we jumped from 2-6 from last week in quadrant run to 2-7.
Yeah,
it's
bleak.
It's the top quadrant 1 is weak, but again, going to Clemson and. If we can go to Clemson and we can get that W, that's still going to look like that's going to be a quadrant 1 win. And we will probably end up, if we do win that, being 3-8 or 3-7 overall with quadrant 1 wins, and all of them being away, road games against Miami, Louisville, and Clemson. Hopefully those will all kind of count a little bit more. So, but 4-2 in quadrant 2, and then, going 12-2 in quadrant 3 and quadrant 4. Again, Wake Forest falling hurts, but yeah, that's the wrap up so far this week. So obviously, again, it's fluid. It's going to change every night.
Yep, and we'll obviously we'll do the update for that again after Wednesday's game. So real quick, Joe, last question on the quadrant stuff: do we have to win out? In your opinion, do we have to win out? A lot of quiet.
I don't think we have. The problem is that we still have the ACC tournament.
I know.
You go in the ACC tournament and you go and you win 2 games and play a third and jump your RPI and your strength schedule up and play possibly one of the top 4 teams in the conference again. I mean, it's hard to believe that you might not get in as long as we get one of these wins. But again, there's a lot of other variables. There's teams that depends on the teams around us and behind us, what they do, and again, it also depends on if teams like Middle Tennessee State and Nevada and Loyola Chicago can win their conference tournament and not. There's those 3 teams right there. If it keeps going the way that it is, they're getting in regardless if they win their conference tournament or not. So
it would help us if they won their tournament, though.
Well, of course. Well, if they don't win their tournament, then they're still going to get in, and then another team from their conference that wouldn't have gotten in otherwise is going to see. That's how bubbles are stolen.
Right. Exactly.
So every time that happens, then you might as well just take that last team that's in and make it the first team out. So yeah, it really depends on a lot of that, and the championship weeks are starting, I think, this week. So.
Yeah, they do. They start this week. Almost everything's done by Saturday. So. All right, that's it. All right, go to facebook.com/Cuse Nation podcast. Give us a thumb up there on Facebook, or you can go to Twitter @Cuse Nation Show, @Cuse Nation Show, and we can be found there. As you can see, that's relatively new. I forgot our handle, so I'm on there more. I know. I'm on there more. We're trying to get Joe on there. He acts like he's too busy for all this stuff. All right.
Busy man.
Joe, Dustin says, if everyone stays next year will be nice. Yeah, we've talked about that. Might as well mention, the reason I mentioned this is because it was in the news again, that Battle was not in first round for the mock draft again.
Yep.
So that's why we bring that up. Scott says, worst offensive Cuse team in Boeheim era. If next year's class is not a hit, this program is in big trouble. And Tim replies, doing yeoman's work, he says, really? You don't know about next year's class? So, that's just some people do, some people don't realize what kind of class we got coming in, plus if some guys stay. So
well, that has a lot to do with it, is if some guys stay.
Exactly.
It's really what it comes down to.
Danny says this season is not over yet. They still have a slim chance of making the NCAAs. If they can win their last 2 regular season games and at least 2 games in the ACC, they will be okay. And everything else, it's the NIT for the second year in a row, if not. So
that's not true.
Well, it's not totally true, but we had just talked about winning out. I don't know if you need to win out, like you said, Joe, to your point, if they can take some NCAA or some ACC tourney games too.
Right.
So right now they're an 11 seed, by the way, in that if it ended today.
What, with bracketology?
Wait, no, in the ACC tournament.
Oh yeah, in the ACC tournament, yeah.
Yeah. So they would play. They wouldn't get a bye. They'd be playing on the first day. Right.
Would give them a better chance of getting two wins.
Exactly. That's why I wasn't that upset with it.
Right, but still, that first win, that's a scary one, because you could possibly lose that game and make it even worse. See, I definitely think that we have a good chance to win both these next games.
I think so too. I think
that if we win these 2 games, like you've been seeing the trend. I mean, when I was checking on the bracketology, we were in like one of the last 4 teams in. Then we lost to North Carolina, and we were still one of the last 4 teams in. And then we just lost to Duke, and I think we fell to like the first or second team out. So we're right there. And if we were to beat Boston College, then that would be a decent win. I mean, it's on the road, so that's not going to hurt us. And other people might lose, and obviously the Clemson game would be just icing on top. So I think going into the ACC tournament 20-11, we would be in very, very good shape. We definitely wouldn't be the 11 seed, and as long as we won that first game, then I think we'd be fine.
Jeff says a point spread was 14, and Duke puts on press to win by 16. Not that bad. I mean, it's kind of a good point, but I mean, they did clear the spread. They did press a lot too. They pressed right from the beginning, which was
I think what he's trying to say is that should have been the expectation. That was the odds makers' expectations.
Exactly, and they pressed almost the whole entire game, and they did cause some turnovers. The mid-court turnovers is what kills. That's like a dagger to a fan. You know what I mean?
Well, and they got a lot of easy baskets by just beating us down court too.
Yeah, they did. There was one. I don't want to mention who it was because I'm not sure, but
it's probably Sidibe.
No, someone gave up chasing Allen one time. They didn't even try. I don't remember who it was. Carl says, when the other team has double-digit dunks and you have double-digit turnovers, you will not dance. Well, I mean, you will not win that game. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if one game is going to...
Yeah.
Whatever.
Greg says, win next 2, both winnable games, then reset for conference tourney. That's a level head for you, Greg. I agree.
Yeah.
Good job. Dennis, like watching the NBA team take on a NBA team take on a high school squad. No, not really. Not really. I don't think so. I think that would be a disaster for us anyway. Duke would get crushed by an NBA team. I mean, come on. Don't be so hyperbolic all the time.
Yep.
Mary says, sanctions put us in the toilet. Joe?
I agree. I 100% agree.
Nicholas says, we've been spoiled with great Syracuse teams. That's a Joe point. He mentions that all the
Yep.
time. With the NCAA sanctions, we've been decimated. Yeah, it was the first year, Joe, we made it to the Final Four when it hadn't really affected us too much. And then here we are 2 years separated from that. And
Yeah, but the year before the Final Four, we had to
we did. We did. We took ourselves out of the tournaments. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, you look at it, the lowest that this program has been because of this and the sanctions is what? All in the same situation. That year that Christmas was there, but we self-imposed sanctions, we were right there on the bubble. We weren't even allowed to play in the ACC tournament. So that's one of those things where we were right there. We could have possibly made the tournament that year. We would have been close. And who knows if we could have stuck a couple out or gutted a couple out if those kids knew that they had a chance to make a postseason. So, yeah. And then what was it last year when we were right there on the bubble? This year, right there on the bubble. And you're talking about these are the tough years through sanctions. I mean, come on. That's how spoiled we are. It's ridiculous. It's like we're on the bubble. You have teams that, I mean, a couple years ago, Nebraska made the tournament for the first time in like 20 years. Like, pump the brakes. We're right there in the bubble. We're competitive. Yeah, we're not the Syracuse of old, but we don't have full scholarships. That's what sanctions are. They're meant to harm the program. It's a punishment. It's called the punishment for a reason.
Right.
And if this is the worst of it, and now next year sanctions are gone, and now we have a top 10 recruiting class, if we get, as long as the cupboard that we have right now, or whatever we have in the cupboard right now, doesn't leave or transfer, then we're going to be right back to where we were. So.
Yeah, and we're spoiled, but you can't blame. I mean, in some sense, you can't blame fans for being upset because they're spoiled. Let's be honest too, and not to relive it, but the punishment didn't fit the crime. So there's that.
But either way, there was a punishment, and anybody who didn't think that there wasn't going to be any repercussions out of it was naive.
Yeah, no one in the mainstream talks about it though, Joe. No one ever says. No one on TV, I have never heard anybody mention, Syracuse is in their third year of sanctions, and Jim Boeheim's doing actually a pretty good job for what he's got. You never hear that.
No, you don't, because we had that 1 year where we got self-imposed, and the very next year
we made it to the Final Four.
Made the Final Four run. So that made it look like, he can make the Final Four in sanctions. Well, that was still we still had a team full of older guys with some good young talent.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's because our young talent's leaving and going pro and we're getting a first-round draft pick every year still. Like, I don't know. But either way, the public perception is that it's not affecting it. But now, 3 years later, we have no depth.
Yeah, it's taken a toll, but it ends this year. All right, Joe, the Syracuse Orange are heading to Chestnut Hill to face Boston College Wednesday, February 28th. At 9 p.m. Jeez, another 9 o'clocker.
Yeah.
So this is gonna be a must win. We have to win this game, in my opinion. We have to win this game. Not talking anything to have to do with the ACC tournament. I feel like this is a must win.
Yeah, I would have to agree, just based on the timing. Not to say that it's not going to be a difficult game. This is going to be just as difficult a game as going to Wake Forest or going to Georgia Tech. Probably more difficult. We did the first time we met this year at home, we beat them 81-63. Battle had a pretty good game, and we had 5 players in double digits that game. So we were kind of working on all cylinders. Obviously, we scored 81 points. And Boston College looked like a better team back then. They're on a 3-game losing streak right now, which is one thing that does scare me. They're currently 16-13, 6-10 in the conference. So they were 16-10 and still in a position to possibly make a run for a bubble type team. So again, they aren't the easiest team. They're led by Jerome Robinson, who's averaging 25 points a game in ACC play. I think he's leading the conference. He's shooting real good. Kai Bowman with his red Fraggle Rock hair, he's always a threat, and he put up a pretty good game against us last time. Chapman is another another guy that kind of scares me because he's a good 3-point shooter. He was hitting some against us at home, but he was in foul trouble and fouled out. So I kind of look for him to maybe have a revenge game because I think he thought, and honestly, I thought there's a couple unfair ones there too, but that he kind of got done dirty in that game and didn't get to put his stamp on that game. So, and again, talk about a hungry team who's lost 3 straight. It's not going to be an easy game, but I would like to think and hope that based upon these last 2 games with us and how they've went and knowing what we need to do now, you're going to get a little bit more sense of urgency, hopefully, from our team. And I'm looking for ties, but pretty much everybody to come back and have a better game. I want the big guys to have a better game, even though some of them look banged up, especially Brissett. I think he's going to be pretty upset at how he played. First time he actually looked like a freshman this year was against Duke, and Jim Boeheim said something about that too. So
they basically said he looked like a deer in the headlights. Yeah.
I mean, we have to go down there and we have to take care of business because at Clemson, we're home against Clemson last game, right? So the last game against Clemson is going to be no joke. So I think my the way that I go about it, just one game at a time. See where we are now. So you've seen where we've gone. We've only moved a couple spots backwards in the last 2 losses, so they haven't really hurt us that much. Again, it's just we're running out of opportunities for wins. So let's go in and hopefully get this W. And I just wait to see where the chips fall come Saturday, because by that time we'll know what other teams have done around us, and who knows, maybe that win puts us right back in a playing game type thing. And we just don't know where we're going to be and where other teams are going to be. So, but if we lose on Wednesday, it's definitely going to be time to hit the panic button.
Yeah, I would say that we haven't hit the panic button yet. I don't think we've had to be honest with you. Even with all the negative talk and everything, it hasn't been time yet. But it can happen just like that, and it's if they lose against Boston College. So there's just been a lot of people talking about NIT this, NIT that for the last month, going back and forth, and we have go on some skids and we win a couple of this and that. And the realistic part is that in the last month, I mean, we haven't really moved anywhere from, a 10-11 seed inside the tournament to first team out. Yeah. Kind of back and forth. I mean, we're a bubble team. We know that we're a bubble team. We've talked about the inefficiencies that we have on this team, and we knew that we had kind of a tough schedule, second half schedule in the ACC, and we went to Louisville and took care of business, went to Miami and took care of business. Obviously, some games we should have been able to take advantage of at home, and some other ones we should have won that we kind of let get away, but here we are. Yeah, we
beat Boston College, and we're still right there. We ain't going anywhere.
And Clemson's at home. So,
right.
And that is a Saturday 2:00 game. Should draw a decent crowd, I'm not trying to look ahead. It is imperative to beat Boston College, and that's what Syracuse is focusing on. So hopefully they can get it done, and I think they can. They've won some tough games on the road this year.
They have.
Louisville, Miami. That Georgetown game was an overtime game. I mean, I know Georgetown has slipped fairly terrifically, but still a tough game. So
and we've grown up a lot offensively. True. I think. I mean, we're still not far from above average or average, but we still have some guys in some spots that can't make those plays. But we figured out how to kind of take advantage of some of the things and how to get our big three the points and to get other people involved and stuff like that. So I think that our offense, if we were to go to Wake Forest or to Georgia Tech at this point, then I think that we would be able to beat them. So we just got to hope for the best, man. Hope for the best.
And we will be back. We'll try to get back Thursday. We were a day late on this one, but we'll try to get back Thursday, and if we can, we'll talk about it. Hopefully it's a win. So that's it. Go to facebook.com/Cuse Nation Podcast. Hit us up on Twitter @Cuse Nation Show. And that's it for Joe. I'm Sean. We're out.
Peace.
You just heard the Cuse Nation Podcast with Sean and Joe.